impressive 38-10 win over the Arizona Cardinals in Mexico City last night. Quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo had one of his best games of his career. Jimmy G threw for 228 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Niners now have 6 wins and 4 losses. They are tied with the Seattle Seahawks at the top of the NFC West. So with us now is Stephanie Sanchez, who is the host of the 49 Carats podcast. Good morning to you, Stephanie.
Good morning.
All right, so Jimmy G had a good night, as we just mentioned. What stands out to you about his performance on the field?
Well, he's just been accurate and he's been efficient for this team, and we saw him throw more than we usually see. He had 29 throws in that game. He had 20 completions, 228 yards, 4 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 131.9, and lately he's been keeping the ball safe, right? He has a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio so far this season, and yesterday was his first time in his career. He's gone 3 straight games without throwing an interception, so pretty crazy to think about, but he's taking care of the football. He's efficient. Yesterday we saw him spread the ball around to pretty much all of the playmakers that this offense has, and yeah, he's just doing a great job.
Wide receivers, let's move on to them. Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, and running back Christian McCaffrey factored heavily into the game. What impressed you the most here?
Well, I mean, Ayuk continues to be very lethal in the red zone for this team, and he's been consistent as well. George Kittle got back in the mix after having 2 pretty quiet games. He also had 2 touchdowns. And even Deebo Samuel, a little razzle-dazzle on the end-around touchdown that he had. Christian McCaffrey, I think, has made a huge difference for what this offense has been able to do. Ever since he was traded to the 49ers, they're averaging 28.5 points per game and close to 400 yards per game. So he's made a huge impact as well, and it seems like this offense is just clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, and speaking of which, with the recent addition of Christian McCaffrey, do you think the 49ers offense has finally hit its peak, or is there still some room to grow here?
It certainly feels like they're hitting a stride. Now, whether they have more room to grow, I certainly feel like there is room for improvement, of course, but yesterday I think was a great step in the right direction, being able to not only sustain drives but score touchdowns, I think, because that was one of the main knocks on this offense in the first few games. The last wins that they had, yes, they were getting red zone. They were getting into the red zone, but they were settling for field goals. Yesterday, we kind of saw a culmination of everything that they've been working towards, and this team looks very dangerous in the second half of the season.
All right, so let's move on to this now. The game, of course, played in Mexico City. There was a sea of red and gold out there. How amazed are you about the wide-scale popularity of the Niners?
I mean, we know this team loves to travel well, and there's a lot of fans, 49er fans in Mexico, so it's no surprise to see that large of a showing from the fans out there. And I mean, I think it helps give the team a boost. It certainly felt like a home game, even though it was technically a home game for the Cardinals, and that's good for them because the 49ers have 3 home games in a row, coming up. So it feels like they just had a 4th.
Yeah, and speaking of which, those games coming up here, the Niners, 3 wins in a row now as they head into play against New Orleans next week. What's your prediction for that game?
Well, I think the Saints have been struggling on offense, and so that's something that I think this defense could take advantage of. So I expect the 49ers, with the way that they've been performing on offense these last few games, you mentioned the 3 wins in a row now, I would expect that to continue, and I think they have a great showing against the Saints as well.
All right. Stephanie Sanchez, host of the 49 Carats podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
All right, coming up here on Mornings on To The Night.